everything. We'll have about 45 minutes, or a little more. We're going to ask Rabbi Herbert to keep his answers to about 2 minutes or less, again, so that we do, 25 questions instead of 3. That would be good. And let's go ahead and get started. Rabbi.
Well, first I want to thank Michael and Julie, the entire search committee, Zane and Elise, for enabling me to be here. I've had such a wonderful welcome to the community and the congregation, and I'm extraordinarily grateful, so thank you. And I want to thank all of you for the great weather that you managed to bring about for my visit, which is not the first to Seattle or Herzl-Ner Tani. I visited this congregation. I actually delivered a sermon from this bima in 1996 when I interviewed here to be your assistant rabbi. And I ended up I was one of 2 finalists. The assistant who became your rabbi at that time was Rabbi Lisa Gelber. I think some of you know her. So it's actually nice to be here and get a real sense of what Seattle is really like. When I was here 20 plus years ago, it did not rain once, not a drop. So I really feel I'm getting the full Seattle experience. And I really fell in love with this place and with Seattle, the Seattle area. It really touched me profoundly, and I would have actually come here to be the assistant had I not at the time been recently married, or was getting married, to my then wife, who had applied to an LLM program at University of Pennsylvania, a law school. And so when that option became viable for her, this option did not become viable for me, and I ended up going to Philadelphia and serving Har-Zion Temple for 8, almost 9 years, which was very interesting, a very, I think, wonderful learning experience for me. There were many things I took from that experience that made me who I am as a person and a rabbi. And I then accepted an offer to be rabbi in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which is a place I never ever thought I would even visit. My experience with Milwaukee was Liver and Shirley and Happy Days. And yet, I spent 15 wonderful years as the rabbi of the community's only conservative affiliated congregation, raised my 2 children who are very dear and precious to me, accomplished a lot. When I got to Milwaukee, the congregation had hemorrhaged many of its members. The leadership was very tired and overburdened. The building was very old and tired. And I was blessed to be able to help rejuvenate the congregation, to lead a major capital campaign and really transform the physical plant of our campus. And I also had some really unbelievable transformative experiences. I traveled to Uganda with some of the leading rabbis of our movement, and I helped convert over 200 members of the Abayudaya community and participated in the installation of the first sub-Saharan African rabbi. And I did that because my congregation really supported me and felt it was not only important for me as a conservative rabbi, but for the congregation and what it would mean for the congregation. Our social action committee ended up getting very involved in helping to support the Abayudaya community. And I also had the real great fortune of being able to study at the Shalom Hartman Institute in Jerusalem, which my congregation, again, was very supportive of. I was selected for a very intense rabbinic fellowship program that it's 3.5 years in duration, requires a month of residency in Jerusalem in the summer, with distance learning throughout the year and visits in the winter for winter sessions. And that experience of studying with rabbis from every one of our movements, with the leading Jewish thinkers in the Jewish world, was absolutely transformative and it deepened me as a rabbi and as a Jew. And I became a senior rabbinic fellow at Hartman, which then eventually led me to join the staff in 2018. I've been working for 1.5 years at Hartman, our program here in North America, Shalom Hartman North America. I had this really great opportunity that, it's kind of hard to say no. And I felt like at that time I had accomplished a lot in my congregation and wanted to kind of stretch myself and take on a new challenge. And I work currently on national rabbinic programs for Hartman. As Zane had said, or read, I help rabbis teach Hartman Torah, like the iEngage program that Rabbi Rosenbaum, I know, has taught here at Herzl. And I do a myriad of other things. But I really came to recognize that my passion and my love and what really gets me up in the morning and what I missed the most was being a pulpit rabbi and working in a congregation. And I love the people I work with at Hartman. I'm passionate about the Institute and the work it does. I'm a big believer in it. And I love big ideas and being in a world of big ideas. But I really came to understand that I love being with Jews even more. Jews of every age, of every background, levels of involvement, teaching them Torah, helping them in times of loss and challenge, and celebrating with them during times of great joy. I miss, being a pulpit rabbi is sort of like being a Renaissance woman or man. You need to be pretty good at a lot of different things. And I missed it. It's what I love. And that's why I decided I wanted to return to this life. And that's why I'm here.
That's a good segue to my first question now, right? So here in Seattle, we have hired rabbis before, and we'll hire rabbis again, I'm sure. The first question I always hear from everybody is, but do they want to be in Seattle? Do they know what Seattle's like? So my question for you is, why this particular congregation? What resonated for you and what you've read about us and what we're looking for? And then specifically, why of all the places in the country, why Seattle?
Well, the other conservative congregation has a rabbi. Very happy with their rabbi. That's not an option for me. And as I said, when I was here 21 years ago, actually longer than that, I just really loved the congregation, the values of the congregation. And look, I have spent almost 18 years living in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And I know there's some people here who are from the Midwest, and they know what life in the Midwest is for much of the year, because in Milwaukee, winter begins in October and ends sometime around June. I'm not really exaggerating. It was -4 today back home, and it snowed. It's going to be, I think, a high of 17 tomorrow. The spritz out here, bring it on, the rain is fine. Lake Michigan is gorgeous. I live about a half a mile from the lake. It's really breathtaking to look at. but it doesn't hold a candle to the bucolic surroundings of this area. I love the entrepreneurial spirit of the Pacific Northwest in Seattle. This is a congregation where I think the leadership and many of you really do, thinking out of the box is not an exception, it's kind of like the rule. And I want to be impactful. I want to make a thoughtful choice to go somewhere, to be a part of a, first of all, part of a congregation. How am I almost 2 minutes now? Yes. I want to be the rabbi of a congregation I want to daven in and be a member of, and where I feel that I can be most impactful as an educator, a teacher, somebody who believes profoundly in tikkun olam, and many other facets. And I think this is the place for me.
Thank you. So can you tell us a little bit about what was your Jewish upbringing like, and when and how did you know you wanted to become a rabbi?
I never get this question. I grew up in a little town called Beacon, along the Hudson River, mid-Hudson Valley of Dutchess County, 50 miles north of New York City. We call that upstate New York. 125, you're from Brooklyn. 125 families.
Syracuse,
okay, that's, you win. I was often, back then, you know, the minion was men, and I was the 10th man at age 13. And as I said to some, I was weaned on sourdough cookies and shulevitz at Kiddush following services. And that's where I really fell in love with the Jewish community, which really cared about everybody, and especially my family. I come from a single, my parents divorced, separated when I was very young, divorced when I was very young. My mother was very ill. My brother and I, you know, my mother, we were able to eat meals because of food stamps. You know, I come from a really tough experience growing up. My Jewish community, they embraced us. So the synagogue was really family for me. And I really, at a very early age, had a dream of being a rabbi.
Thank you. So when you decided to become a rabbi, talk a little bit about why you chose the conservative movement. And when you look at the movement, both throughout your time as a rabbi and at the movement today and some of the progressive things happening in the conservative movement, tell us a little bit about which ones resonate with you, how you see the movement as a whole.
Well, aside from, I'll say the point. I'll come back to it later. You know, when you tell a rabbi 2 minutes, you're dreaming, you know? I grew up in a conservative congregation. My family's always affiliated with a conservative congregation. As an adult, I continue to be a conservative Jew. I chose to become a conservative rabbi because I really believe that I think our movement is a movement where Klal Yisrael is a core value. Believing in the totality of the Jewish people. I also believe in the intellectual honesty and integrity of our movement. I believe in taking a critical eye at tradition and at our texts, but doing it in a loving way. And I don't find that, for me, I don't find that in Reform Judaism as much. I don't find it in Orthodoxy. I'm trying not to generalize. I'm not trying to be judgmental. I think those movements work for the people that they work for. I have friends who are rabbis in every movement, so I believe there's should be something for everybody. For me, conservative Judaism speaks the most.
Thank you. Now we're going to get to some of the harder questions. Those are the easy ones. Okay. In today's world, we talk a lot in our congregation about civil discourse. Rabbi Rosenbaum may have talked to you a little bit about some of his teaching on civil discourse. Talk to us a little bit about what you think the role of politics is from the pulpit.
I'm very political personally. You know, I take politics very seriously. I don't believe that everybody wants to come to shul and to hear what they have already heard on TV or read in the newspaper or on the radio when it comes to the divisive quality of political discourse in America today. I believe in teaching from a point of view of values. There's often a lot of overlap, and people will often sort of know what I'm talking about. I think it's important. I think people are really interested in knowing what the rabbi has to say from a Jewish perspective, point of view, on the burning issues and important issues of the day. For you, for your family, your children. How do you understand what's going on in the world today through a Jewish lens, from tradition? And I think there's a way of doing that by through a discourse of values. I happen to really know how to do that well because that's what the Shalom Hartman Institute is all about. You know, we're all about creating a level of discourse about one of the most divisive issues in the Jewish community today, and that's Israel. It's an issue that used to unite everybody. You know, we didn't agree on religious things, but we all agreed on Israel. That's not true today. And what we can't even do is be willing to figure out how to talk about Israel, let alone agree on Israel. But I think learned a lot about how to set a table to enable a community to talk about tough issues in a respectful way. If we can do that, we've accomplished a lot. We don't have to agree about a topic, but I think we should agree about how to talk about it. And that's what I would bring here.
Thank you. So in our synagogue, we want to be a welcoming, inclusive home for all different demographics. And there's a question on every demographic we could possibly think of. So I'm going to kind of lump them together and let you choose what you'd like to talk about. But we've had questions about how do we welcome Jews by choice, Jews of color, LGBTQ, interfaith married couples, empty nesters. I could go on and on, but if you can just kind of address how you look at all the different demographics in a synagogue and try to make everybody feel included and have a Jewish home.
Well, I know there are about 50 people showing up, hopefully, for the tech study Shabbat afternoon. I'm going to be talking much more about that then, but my overarching philosophy is that we need to be as welcoming as possible. There are fewer and fewer of us who are willing to walk into the door. There are fewer and fewer of us who are willing to think about affiliation, not only in a synagogue, but in any Jewish institution, and more broadly, in institutions in the community. And I think we can't afford not to be welcoming. And it's the Jewish way, you know, we welcome the stranger. And I value everybody. I don't care what's in your wallet or what isn't in your wallet. And in my former congregation, I did whatever I could to make the congregation welcoming of LGBTQ members or visitors, Jews of color, and Jews who weren't married to Jews. And I don't know how much time you want to take on this particular topic.
Not more than 2 minutes.
Okay.
There's a lot of questions.
So, you know, Milwaukee is a very small C conservative kind of town. It's not the place marketers generally think of when they want to start a new product. They don't test it in Milwaukee. Okay? Things come to us much later than they do here in Seattle. And change is very slow. My congregation wasn't egalitarian, didn't count women in dominion until 4 years before I got there. And somebody who wasn't Jewish could not stand on the bima at a bar mitzvah and recite the prayer for the country. It had to be done off the bima with everybody else. So Jews did the prayer for Israel off the bima, but it was extraordinarily awkward. And it just didn't make me feel good. There were lots of congregants who didn't feel about it. working with the ritual committee, having a very transparent process that people felt had a lot of integrity. I led the change so that non-Jews could come on the bima, including the non-Jewish parent of a bar mitzvah could sit on the bima during the service. I am a big believer in conversion and encouraging people to convert. Many people whose Jewish spouse was a member of the congregation, I think perhaps because they felt that I was approachable and they felt comfortable with me, they decided that they wanted to become Jewish. And so there were many members of the co-members of the congregation. By the way, I got my congregation to send a mail home that included both people's names, not just the Jewish member. I don't think that violated any halakha. And so I was very, very encouraging of people to convert. My mother was a convert to Judaism. I'm the product of someone who converted. So I believe in it strongly, but I also believe I take a Hillel approach. You know, I'm not the person who's gonna try to chase somebody away by asking an obnoxious question about Judaism. I'm gonna take that person on, you know, I don't feel challenged in that situation, it's an opportunity. So I believe within, obviously, a rubric or standards of our movement, there are things that really can't be done, but I think that we need to be as accommodating as possible to make as many people feel welcome here.
Thank you. We talked a little bit last night at dinner about the large unaffiliated community in Seattle. And if you can talk a little bit about how you would ignite the unengaged people in Seattle and even the unengaged people that are members of our synagogue to help update HNT for the 21st century.
Spending about 8 years as a leader of the Rabbinical Assembly, the Conservative Rabbinical Association, to make the RA a relation-based rather than transactional-based organization. I've done a lot of work getting my colleagues to serve as volunteers in my professional association, because I believe that's one way of strengthening our movement overall. And so doing the work of relational Judaism, which is really, it's all about relationship. You know, in order for me to influence you, I have to have a relationship with you. If I don't, it's not gonna happen. And I think that the work I did in my former congregation of going out to meet people where they are, not expecting them to come into the building, inviting people to have coffee with me, inviting people to dinner, young people have dinner with me on Rabbi Ripper's tab. You know, these are all, and teaching downtown Milwaukee in offices. These are all things that I think are really crucial to engaging with people who aren't members of the congregation, but also doing in-reach, reaching people who are members who don't necessarily come here, maybe more than, I think somebody said here, a half a day a year. So I'm a big believer in it, and I spent a lot of effort doing it.
Thank you. So looking at your resume and credentials, you have many, many strengths that we can all read about. But what do you consider your biggest areas for continued growth and development as a rabbi?
Of late, I really had a hard time balancing. So balancing what I need for me, for my personal nourishment, and the needs of the congregation. That being said, I have absolutely no anxiety or fear or concern about serving this congregation to my utmost. You know, I was the rabbi of a 1,500 family congregation. And so doing that with children is something that I don't know that I did a great job at for me personally and for the life of my family. I think, and I'm not the only rabbi who probably would say this, but family at times took second place, and I always tell my congregants, your family comes first, but when you're the rabbi, it's like doctors being the worst patient. And now, not having children at home, having grown children, and being able to find more of a balance, I'm really working a lot harder at doing that.
When we talk about anything really programmatic, so if you want to talk a little bit about some of the newer innovative programs you might have brought to your last congregation, or that you might, from learning about us, have in mind for this congregation, either for adults or for families. Share a little bit about some of the programmatic things that have excited you over the years.
When I got to CBINT, Purim was deadly. It was really bad. There was no ruach. There were no kids. And I would say 2 years later, my ritual committee chair, her brother, Rabbi David Soloff, is the director of Camp Mall, Wisconsin, and he lives in Chicago, would come up to Milwaukee on holidays like Purim, and he said to me, after Purim, Jacob, I cannot believe the difference, because the sanctuary was full. There were kids. It was lively and wonderful. While it was geared toward adults, the children felt included. And it really, I think, made a big difference. It lifted spirits. One other thing I did was to build community, because I think building community is what we should be about, and we should do it whenever we can. I started a intergenerational Shabbaton, and we would go to the Chicago JCC camp called Camp Shy in the Wisconsin Dells. It was about a 3-hour drive, 2.5-hour drive. Half the congregation went up in the dead of winter in February, and we ate together, we prayed together. I brought a scholar in residence. We did a Jewish Olympics in the gym, Motzei Shabbat. We went to water park on Sunday, and so many of those young families that my family grew up with theirs, they became leaders in the congregation. Their children went through religious school or the day school and went through confirmation together, which really didn't happen all that much. I think it was an innovative, creative program that built community and made people feel excited.
Talk a little bit about how you feel about musical instruments on Shabbat or on holidays.
Does anybody have a Twix bar? Like you, I worked with my cousin, Jeremy Stein, who's a really great, wonderful partner. We always had this service in the summer called Shabbat of the Stars. We'd go outside, and we'd have Friday night services, even though there were no stars out, because it didn't get dark until like 2 a.m. that time of the year. But we wanted to do something different during other times of the year, mostly though when Shabbat would come in late. So we could use musical instruments. We called it Shabbat and Around. We usually had 20 folks for Friday night services at 6 p.m. When we did this service, we had about 150. And he had a great relationship with a percussionist who was also Jewish from the Milwaukee Symphony Orchestra, brought a drum or other percussion instrument, and Jeremy played the guitar. I would do kavanot introductions to the different prayers. I'd go around right before Mariv with the mic, and I ask people, what are you grateful for this weekend? what are you hoping to be grateful for in the week to come? To get people involved. And then we had a full Friday night dinner following. And it was people loved it. We did not consider at that time using musical instruments at Mariv, or Kabbalat Shabbat, or Shabbat morning, or festivals other times of the year. It is something I am definitely, I would absolutely say it's something that should be taught, that we should discuss it, we should study about it, we should definitely consider and have a conversation about it. Because I believe in doing things that don't betray tradition, halakha, but we have absolutely positions in our movement that allow it. And I've got a vision. I'm sure you all have a vision. I'd like to come and talk about how our visions either coincide. Obviously, you have a wonderful cantor, and his voice, I think, is really important to bring to the discussion. So I would be absolutely open to considering it.
So
A rabbi wears many hats: scholar, public speaker, counselor, educator, schmoozer, consoler, many different things expected of a rabbi.
Not
How
sure.
do you balance all of these roles? What role are you most dedicated to, and what role is the most difficult for you? Or what do you like and what do you not like?
I don't know if I said this with the search committee, but I have to tell you, I know there are people who love meetings, who love board meetings, where the main topic of discussion is, are we going to use plastic, or are we going to use metal utensils at Kiddush? And I've been to those board meetings, and I don't love them. And it's a part of being a pulpit rabbi that I don't enjoy. And that's why I think leadership development and training is really important, because you don't have a lot of time on your hands. You have day jobs. Nobody wants to volunteer knowing that they're going to be involved in an endeavor that could be a waste of their time. And I also don't like to waste my time. So I'll just be honest with you, I'm not into that. I have absolutely no qualms about walking into a hospital room, and I do it all the time, and I made it a point to visit people more than once in a week if they were in the hospital. My mother was a dialysis patient. I grew up with it. I know some rabbis have, and clergy have a personal aversion. It's tough for them to do it. I grew up with it. I'm comfortable with it. I want to be there for people at those times in their lives, which I hope are infrequent. I love doing weddings. I love doing b'nai mitzvah. I love seeing children affirm their Judaism. I love teaching, whether it's on a carpet square with a kindergarten class, sitting on one, or it's a fifth grader. They're the toughest, by the way. Or a confirmation class, or adult learners. And I actually enjoy asking people for money. I really do. I've done it throughout my rabbinate. I do it now. I run the Hartman Rabbinic campaign. I pick up the phone and I call colleagues and I ask them for money. And I actually enjoy it.
I'm going to move to the B'nai Mitzvah process and our teens in our congregation. Somebody must have talked to you, maybe this is from the search committee. It says, in your previous synagogue, you re-envisioned the B'nai Mitzvah process. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how you interact with that age and post B'nai Mitzvah as well?
Sure. There was no B'nai Mitzvah family program at my former congregation when I arrived, and I worked with a really great group of lay leaders and the Chazan at the time to put together a Bar Bat Mitzvah family program where parents, families, and the Bar Bat Mitzvah students together, they learned. We did kind of a mini Melton with them, in addition to religious school and in addition to their time preparing their Haftarah, their Torah reading, parts of the service with the Chazan, and working on their Devar Torah with me. And parents really appreciated it. The students actually appreciated it. We fed them dinner. We made it, depending on the size of the class, it was a reasonable chunk of time that we asked them to commit to. And it's still going on. And I worked with the Bar Bat Mitzvah in terms of helping them craft their Devar Torah, to learn their parashah, to teach them, commentators and provide them with resources. And then obviously, I should say obviously, but I participated in the Bar Bat Mitzvah rehearsal with the Chazan, and also served as a resource for parents if they needed help, either learning about the service or with their Torah portion. So those are the kinds of things I did with the B'nai Mitzvah. I taught confirmation. I actually adapted Hartman's iEngage program for my confirmation class. I was the first rabbi in North America to do it, and Hartman had other rabbis contact me to find out how they could do it. When your own daughter who's in the class says, "Wow, I really enjoyed that," you know that you kind of like struck gold. So I happen to really love teaching teenagers, and especially that right after Bar Bat Mitzvah age, where there's still you still have grabbed them.
Thank you. Tell me, what has been the most difficult situation that you have faced as a rabbi? Difficult time in your career, or difficult specific instance?
Well, there is a book out there that I know some of you have read, have heard about. It was a very trying, challenging, difficult time in my personal life, my professional life, just kind of the beginning of my rabbinate. It was really hard. It was really hard on my wife. Thank God my children were not old enough to really know what was going on, but it was really hard. So a very failed transition from a rabbi of 30 plus years to the assistant rabbi, who is much younger than most of the clergy and professional staff at that time. And it was really, really hard, and I learned a lot from it. The aphorism that you grow from difficult situations, and I was never really a big believer, and I'd rather learn it through other ways, but I learned a lot. I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about what my strengths are and what then were my weaknesses. I learned a lot about synagogue life. I learned a lot about process. I learned a lot about transition, and it made me a better rabbi. And I think that's why I was able to, serve a congregation following that for 15 years.
Thank you. I think you learned quite a bit about our community campus tonight. I hope over dinner. Did we do that?
What a tremendous presentation.
Oh, good. So,
I'm pointing to Zane.
So as they told you, kind of give you a briefing on our community campus project this evening. Tell me what you think about that, and how you feel about coming into a congregation that might move forward with a campus type project, and have you done fundraising for that kind of a project in the past?
For that kind of project, no. Not for a community campus. Thanks for coming. Not for a project like that, but I helped lead a capital endowment campaign at Herzl-Ner Temple. We raised nearly $3 million. I secured the main gift of $1 million at Herzl-Ner, what is now Ner Tamid, to enable us to begin the process of renovating our campus. One of the reasons, really one of the many reasons that I was really interested in the prospect of being the rabbi here is the notion of creating a campus for the community. And I know it has succeeded in other communities. I've got colleagues who are rabbis in communities where there is a community campus. Not quite like the one you're envisioning, which I think is even more unique. But I think it's really exciting. And it's not just about the construction, which I actually love. I became very good friends with the architect in Milwaukee, who's very involved in his Episcopal church, who worked with me on the project we did at my synagogue. I love architecture. I love incorporating Jewish motifs and symbols into the architecture of a synagogue. The idea of the community being galvanized, I think energized, is even, for me, more enticing, interesting. I'm more passionate about that, what it will mean for the community, beyond the bricks and mortar. I think the idea of people coming together despite denominational differences, organizational silos, I think it's just tremendous. And I'd love to be a part of that.
I have 3 questions left. How's our time?
Oh, we're fine. We've got 15 minutes.
Okay, I can bring you more day. So, as you know, we do not currently have an assistant rabbi, and we've intentionally left that position open so that our new senior rabbi can play a part in having an assistant with a complementary skill set. So I guess I'd like you to tell me, if you were our senior rabbi, what does our assistant rabbi look like?
I don't know.
Well,
I don't know. I want to get to know you better. I want to get to know what, we got to come together with a vision. I have a vision. I think I've shared some of it with you. I want to learn and appreciate your vision. I really want to find out how my strengths can be leveraged here, and where they can't, who that person can be. I'm at a point in my life, you know what, I don't feel threatened. I'm not in this for the ego. I told your administrative staff, who I think are really exceptional, that I just want to be in the business of making them shine, everybody who works here shine. I'm more interested in everybody succeeding. I don't feel like I have to be in the spotlight all the time. I'd love to share it. And I want to be a mentor. I didn't have the kind of mentorship that I really wanted when I became an assistant rabbi. And I want to be able to do that for a colleague, a less experienced colleague. And I want that colleague to have the same opportunity to preach, to teach, to pastor. And I won't know exactly the extent of that until I know what his or her strengths are and how we can best serve you.
What has been your experience with interfaith couples? And what would you like to see happen in Seattle, working with either, I'm not sure if this question was it intermarriage or interfaith with other faith communities. What would you like the question to be?
Well, I I don't want to be presumptuous and claim I'm speaking for the person who wrote the question. I think I did speak about K-Root and engagement with non-Jewish members and helping to make them feel welcomed and really comfortable here. So I don't know necessarily how much more I can add to that.
Other faith communities. We've got.
Yeah, I think.
Oh, interfaith
Other
work?
faith
Yeah.
communities.
So interfaith work, so I was a two-time and not consecutive president of the Wisconsin Council of Rabbis, and which I loved doing, and that enabled me to work a lot with the interfaith community. We have the Milwaukee Interfaith Conference, which brings together the Jewish, Catholic, Protestant, Sikh, Muslim communities in Milwaukee, and I would have breakfast with the religious leaders every month of the conference, and I was often called upon by our JCRC to represent the Jewish community at interfaith programs. And more recently, I spoke on behalf of the Jewish community in Oak Creek, Wisconsin, which is where the Sikh temple was the target of a terrorist who murdered worshipers. I think it was in the news here as well, right, a number of years ago. So that place was the venue, that city was the venue for a program related to religious tolerance for our Muslim community. And I got up and spoke about the need for pluralism and acceptance. The sheikh at the ISM, the Islamic Society of Milwaukee in Brookfield, which is a western suburb, is a friend of mine. The former mayor of Oak Creek is a friend of mine. And there were a number of other interfaith leaders who became friends of mine, personal friends, because of the work we did together on that program. And Don Darius Butler, who's an African-American Baptist minister, we like to say that we're brothers from other mothers. And he preached for my bima, and I preached in his church, which there's nothing quite like preaching in a Baptist church, where you get immediate feedback. And what a high to walk out with when people are saying, "Amen, Rabbi, amen." So I love doing it, and I believe in it, and I'm glad that your congregation feels it's an important part of what you do.
Great. Okay, now I really have only 3 questions left, and they're fun ones. So, what do you like to do when you're not doing rabbinic things?
Wow, so with my 1% of time, so I was a competitive cyclist, amateur, not professional. Cycling was something I did just to have physical wellness, but I grew to have a real passion for it. I have 3 road bikes. I've raced crits and road races. That kind of came to an end when I had to go to Israel to study at Hartman, which is the heart of the race season in Wisconsin. So now I just really love riding my bike. And I'm glad to know that there are a lot of people here who like to ride bikes. And I've taken up the guitar again. I don't perform for people, but I love doing that. I love reading. And I'm doing the Daf Yomi cycle. So I study a Daf, a folio page of Gemara every day.
They handed me 2 more questions after I said there were only 3.
I'm ready to stay. I don't know how late you want to go.
But that's it, that's the end.
Okay.
Okay, I have 3 more. Are we good? But I said they were fun, and now they're getting serious again. Okay, what are your thoughts on Kabbalah or Hasidic wisdom or Musar practices, and might you integrate these into your services at all?
Well, I definitely teach it. I gained a real appreciation, ironically, for Hasidut and for Musar at the Shalom Harvard Institute. And I say ironically because the Shalom Hartman Institute is a Maimonidean think tank. You know, the thought of Maimonides, my teacher, blessed memory, Rabbi David Hartman, almost everything he wrote was about Maimonides. But Chassidut and Musar have kind of crept into the curriculum. And there are some really great teachers of both at Hartman. And Melila Herzl-Ner caused me to fall in love with the Zohar. Even though I am a rationalist, you know, I really believe in the Torah of Maimonides. I love the fusion of Aristotle and Torah. But I really do appreciate Kabbalah and Musar and Chassidut, and I teach it, and I really enjoy teaching it.
Thank you. So you noted that you met our staff this morning, and I think you said you have a very experienced, great staff, which I think we would all go along with that. As the senior rabbi here, how would you approach long-tenured staff and establish and build relationships, and what kind of a team structure is most comfortable for you?
Well, I have a lot of experience with large staffs, being, you know, the assistant to the senior rabbi of a 1,500 family congregation with a large staff. And currently, I'm part of a large staff. Shalom Hartman North America has staff all over the country. We have weekly staff meetings. Most of us are participating via Zoom. And I have watched a master, our COO, Rachel Rosenfeld, who leads a masterful staff meeting, and it takes a half an hour. And we do, you think you do a lot of programs here? We do hundreds of programs at the same time all over the country. So I've really learned a lot about how to run a staff meeting. And for me, as I said, relationship is everything. And I think in order to have collegiality, a sense of esprit de corps, to earn respect, you have to give respect, and you have to value the people you work with, whether it's the custodian or the executive director or the chazan, the cantor, the educator, it doesn't matter. And so I'm a big believer in weekly staff meetings, and I also had individual meetings with my chazan, and I like to think he thought of me as his rabbi, with the educational director, with the executive director. My former congregation staff was smaller, and you'd be amazed at what you can accomplish in just 15 minutes. Checking in, how's everything going, how are you? In addition to having an efficient staff meeting.
Thank you. Okay, last two questions. The last one is my question, I wrote it down. So, what's been the most rewarding aspect of being a rabbi?
I mentioned this on the way to lunch earlier today, that there are professions I have a great deal of admiration for. I don't know how the people do it, and they do it extraordinarily well, and they make a real difference in the world. For me, I don't think there's any profession or way of life that can match being especially a pulpit rabbi, who is welcomed into people's lives in a way like no other profession. And I read my ex-wife's OBGYN said to me, you know, I kind of feel lucky bringing life into the world, but there's a lot that we share in common, you and I, professionally, but I know that people relate to you in an even deeper way than they relate to me. And to be brought into a person's life when most of the time I hope it's at really high moments, but also those really tough moments, is a gift. I consider it a blessing. And it's why I love being a rabbi. So I guess that's what I have to say.
So when I do job interviews at work, there's one question I always ask. And that question is, what is the one question that you wish we had asked you tonight that we didn't?
Are you willing to be a Seahawks fan?
Okay, on that, I'm gonna invite Michael Tarlow to come down and wrap up for us tonight, and then we'll enjoy dessert.
Why don't you or Michael tell everybody how I showed up at the airport?
I'm gonna give that one to him.
So,
Thank you, Julie.
yeah, thanks, Julie. Thanks to Rabbi Herbert, who's still adjusting to Pacific time, so it's a little bit late for him, so thanks for spending this time with us tonight. Thanks to all of you for coming and participating. So we picked up Rabbi Herbert at the airport last night. Some of the kids at the religious school made this really nice sign to welcome him. We were all excited, standing, waiting for him, and somehow he got to baggage claim in a way we weren't expecting. And so we turned around and there was Rabbi Herbert in a Seahawks hat, which was a perfect first impression.